Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole, and I'm the Parent Support Worker for the Niagara Catholic District School Board EarlyON Child and Family Centers. I am here today for our weekly coffee and conversation in which all parents, grandparents, guardians, and caregivers are welcome. You'll see today I'm enjoying tea instead of coffee, so the drinks can be edited a little bit if you wish. Our program topics revolve around ensuring you feel well, confident, and present in your parenting or caregiving role. As always, if you are unable to sit with me now, you are welcome to warm up your drink and sit with me later at a more convenient time. Just don't forget to click the save button on this video so you have an easier time finding it when you are ready to watch it. I'd like to start off with my personal disclaimer for any new listeners. I have a master's degree in child and youth studies and a bachelor's degree in both child and youth studies and psychology. I come to this position with a lot of research and textbook experience, but I am not a parent myself. I may be here to share my professional knowledge and experience, but you are the expert on your children, and I seek out and value the knowledge and perspectives that you have. You are very important contributors with unique knowledge, experiences, and strengths. For this reason, I want our weekly conversations to be collaborative and that I hope to have the opportunity to learn from you as well. I welcome all comments, ideas, and suggestions for weeks to follow. I will also state that while I am talking about feelings of anxiety today, my advice and support should be taken as an overview based on my own experiences. If you are experiencing mental health concerns, I encourage you to reach out and call 211 and they will direct you to an appropriate community resource. Let's start with a recap. So last week we talked about the importance of practicing mindfulness. We defined it as being a time in which you focus on the here and now without any judgments or distractions. But as Alicia Norche outlined in her article on positivepsychology.com, one of the hardest parts about practicing mindfulness is staying focused, which I'm sure if you tried mindfulness for the first time this past week, you can probably fully stand behind that statement. This week we will be talking about the importance in getting grounded. But what exactly does that mean? Alicia Norche describes getting grounded as the ability to return to the present moment with sustained attention. She referenced an article written by Yates and colleagues in 2015 that described what is called a monkey mind. I found this to be such a true problem with a rather cute name, and I felt I had to share. So if you are like me when trying to practice mindfulness without being grounded, you might experience what they call a monkey mind, which for an illustration would suggest that your mind is acting like a monkey, excitedly jumping from one thought to the next, not really entirely sure of the direction of the thought. This can be a super common experience in times of anxiety, which can feel like excessive worry, heightened nerves, or an uneasiness in relation to something with an uncertain outcome. In times of anxiety, you might even find yourself unable to regain focus on the here and now. So, if you struggle with this in practicing mindfulness or in your daily life, we are going to talk today about how to get yourself grounded in those moments. So I think an easy way to conceptualize grounding is to simply remember to regroup and focus on where you're at in that moment. So let's discuss a quick example. What if you're experiencing anxiety or monkey mind about, for example, your eagerness to make sure your child is developing on track? So parents or caregivers may feel an extra bit of anxiety during COVID quarantine because they are unable to interact with other caregivers and their little ones. So without that connection, you might have anxiety about whether or not your child is reaching the expected development. You might even find yourself spending time with your little one, but out of focus as you spiral through thoughts of, should they be playing in this way? What if they should be talking already or walking? Is this behavior typical for their age? And so on and so forth. When your mind starts to spiral in this way, you are unable to give your child the attention that they need. And this is to no fault of your own. It is very natural to worry and to have your thoughts bounce around like a monkey. But with our discussion and practice of grounding, you'll learn how to refocus that attention to that moment and simply pay attention to playing with your child, which will result in a more positive experience for both of you. And I would just like to remind you as well in saying that while COVID has us physically separate, we here at the EarlyON Center are still available to you when needed. So you are more than welcome to call the center with any questions regarding your child's development, and we will happily return your call and have a chat with you. So I just want to make sure that you all know we're still here. But let's refocus right now, shall we? Alicia Norche reminds us that the first most critical step in grounding is to realize that your thoughts have drifted and you need to refocus. So sometimes it might take you time to realize this, and that's okay. But she mentioned in the article that when you notice your mind wandering, you should first observe that your thoughts were drifting. Second, do not judge or evaluate that your thoughts were drifting. This does not mean that you're bad at mindfulness. And then third would be to perform a grounding technique. So there are many, many grounding techniques out there that might tailor to each of you specifically. So I will link some resources below in the comments to review, and you'll see some different grounding techniques for you to try. Obviously, I can't tell you them all now. We would be here for days. But for an example, there are physical grounding techniques like digging your heels into the ground or clenching your fists. There are mental grounding techniques like visualizing a place that is calm and peaceful, or like we did last week, counting your breath. And there are soothing grounding techniques like thinking of someone you love or repeating positive affirmations. So one of the grounding techniques that I hear of the most was presented by Alicia Norche, but was also presented in an edited version by Tara Well in an article for Psychology Today. And because this edited version is the grounding technique that I am most familiar with, I want to share it with you today. I'll start by saying that I think you should always start with your breath. Before practicing any kind of grounding technique, you should really notice how you're breathing when you are not present. So in moments when you're feeling anxious, you might notice that your breath is stuck right here. It'll feel sort of like your body is incapable of expanding far enough to allot for all of the air that your body needs at that moment. And if you are experiencing anxious breathing, you likely won't be able to refocus your mind. So start by filling your body with air. Allow yourself to breathe fully into your belly, your chest, even your collarbones, and then practice the following grounding technique. You'll find 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. So if I practice this with myself right now, I would recognize that perhaps my nerves are a little heightened just because of this live conversation. So I won't judge that feeling. I understand where it is coming from and I respect it. But I will focus my breath and then I'll look around me. So you can try it with me if you'd like. We'll do this quick activity. So I can see my silly little face on Facebook Live. I can see the books that children would read in our center. I can see the trees outside my window. I can see the big tree in our center. And I can see the big playful circles all over the floor. I can touch my warm mug. I can touch the seat beneath me. I can touch my hair. And I can touch the soft fabric of my shirt. I can hear the cars passing by on the street. I can hear the typing of my colleagues, and I can hear the children learning in their classrooms in the next room. I can smell my delicious ginger tea, and I can smell the leather of my boots. And finally, I can taste this warm, delicious ginger tea that I have going on this morning. So I am now fully aware and fully present with my surroundings, and because of that, in this specific moment, I am grounded. So this practice will help you reorient yourself in your environment to essentially bring your awareness and focus back to the here and now, which is something that we've discussed both this week and last week. So the other benefit to sharing this grounding technique is that it can also be very useful for your kids, and we will discuss why. So let's swing back to the EarlyON Center's pedagogy for learning. Last week we connected our discussion to yours and your child's well-being. This week I'd like to make a connection to the foundation of engagement and how does learning happen. So this foundation emphasizes the importance of our children being involved and focused in the world around them, specifically through exploring our world with their body, their mind, and their senses to help develop problem solving, creative thinking, and innovative skills. And to quote the document, How Does Learning Happen? They say, engagement refers to a state of being genuinely involved and interested in what one is doing. Optimal conditions for learning occur when we are fully engaged. I'm going to say that one more time. Optimal conditions for learning occur when we are fully engaged. So for children, this happens in play that evolves from the child's natural curiosity. Active play that allows children to explore their bodies and minds and senses, stimulating them to ask questions, test theories, solve problems, engage in creative thinking, and make meaning of the world around them. So if we take that knowledge and run with it, we can theoretically feed two birds with one seed. Applying what we know of grounding goes hand in hand with encouraging our children to find themselves focused and engaged in their surroundings by discussing what they can see, touch, hear, smell, and taste. But why else might these grounding techniques be beneficial to our minis? Let's think back to one of the first steps in becoming grounded that I mentioned earlier. Observe that your thoughts were drifting. As an adult, we are aware of how our body feels when we are about to become ungrounded and a bit chaotic. Our shoulders might tense up, our thoughts start to become scattered, and we might start to feel a little bit sensitive and agitated. But your child likely does not recognize or understand these cues yet. So, like in the grocery example from last week, their mind might go straight from, ooh, I really want that chocolate, to full-blown anger that their happiness with that chocolate wasn't guaranteed. And it's important to note here that these tantrums are completely normal. I've seen it time and again, and I wait very, very patiently for my chance to have to deal with this. And for the real young ones, they might not be fully capable of recognizing their emotions and won't yet be able to regulate their behavior in these moments. But in order for grounding to be effective and beneficial for our children, we need to ensure that they understand those bodily sensations that mean danger ahead, I'm about to freak out. So, while you can encourage this in your young children at any age, it's just that they might not pick it up until they're around their third year or so, but it's important to support that thinking nonetheless. So, regrouping, your job as a parent is to help them understand their emotions, why they feel this deep sense of despair over not getting chocolate, and how to deal with it. So this is something we will go over more in depth in coming weeks, but it is important when assisting our minis in getting grounded. So in moments of high stress when grounding is really, really needed, this senses activity that I showed you earlier, it probably won't be very helpful. But in that moment of intense emotion, the goal should really just be to calm down their nervous system. Lessons about emotions can wait because our discussions as well of why that reaction was inappropriate, that can also wait. Because the fact of the matter is, they're not going to be hearing you in those moments. So let's figure out a way to ground them in that moment that they're feeling extreme distress. So an article for parentmap.com gave the tip of practicing candle breathing during or right before an expected outburst. So, like I said earlier, while this might not work in all situations or for all kids, it's just worth giving these activities a try with your mini to help them return back to a grounded state. And it kind of just starts to teach them how it feels to use their breath to sort of calm down. So in these moments, you obviously should start by getting yourself down to their level and model the behavior that you want to see. Do not model the behavior that you're seeing in them, because then the tantrum will be twofold and it will just continue. So you'll come down to them in a calm, relaxed body language with a soft voice, which I know can be hard, but with your grounding and mindfulness techniques, you'll be able to do that. And of course, you're going to want to ensure, of course, that they are safe and out of harm's way before you start this activity. But you're going to remind them that you understand that they must be feeling sad, angry, frustrated, or mad, or whatever feeling they look like they might be experiencing. You must feel so frustrated that I said no to having chocolate. I would be too. And then offer them a redirection, Would you like to try blowing out my finger candles instead? This is where you will demonstrate deep breathing with all 5 fingers. So placing your thumb up and saying, "Are you ready to blow out my candle?" Take a deep breath in and then blow as hard as you can. So, and then continue with all 5 fingers to hopefully calm down your mini. And then we'll have a grounded parent or caregiver and a grounded mini. So all is well in the world. But I recognize that this is all a lot of information that I've shared with you today. I hope that the takeaway message can really just to be aware of your wandering thoughts. Yours and your child's cues for oncoming distress. You should learn those. And of course, recognize and accept that it's time to regroup in those moments. So I invite you to take a look at the resources that I will link below and try out some of the grounding techniques on your own or with your mini. Remember, you must care for yourself first in order to provide the very best care you can for others. I would love if you'd all take a moment next week to share in the comments one moment where you found one of the grounding techniques effective. Or if you have one that wasn't mentioned that works well for you, you can add that in as well. I'm only one person, and I can only share so many ideas. So the more that you add, the more we can support each other, and that's really what I'd like to do. For example, I received a wonderful comment from one of our listeners that while her son was familiar with practicing mindfulness in school, he had not yet tried his breathing with his body. So they placed their hands on their bellies and their chests together and did a breathing sequence that they both really enjoyed. And it was really wonderful for me to hear that both the listener and the mini enjoyed this technique. So as always, let's work together and support each other. All comments and suggestions are welcome. Please do not hesitate to let me know if there is anything you would like me to talk about in future weeks. I will happily include your ideas in my chats. And don't forget, tomorrow morning my ECE colleague Diane will be posting another activity that you can perform with your mindful mini. Next week we will talk about self-care, and we will be inviting our good friend from the EarlyON Center, Donna, to offer a gentle movement sequence. So please join us in some comfy clothes and be ready to stretch it all out. One last message in the spirit of self-care. Our EarlyON team is launching yet another amazing program called Made with Love from Our Home to Yours. It is a program we've designed with our moms, dads, and caregivers in mind. Every Thursday we will be sharing a video of our favorite DIYs, crafts, homemade gifts, self-care, and more. As I always say, and as I said earlier, to be the very best caregiver you can be, you have to care for yourself too. So your self-care journey can start tomorrow with Donna's explanation of a herbal vinegar and oil mixture activity. So always be on the lookout for new and exciting posts headed your way. We are always on our toes to make sure that you feel engaged with us throughout these COVID times. So I hope that you enjoy the rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon.